Prior to the late 1950s and early 1960s, there was an area of Dothan, Alabama that was mostly inhabited by African Americans, known as the Southside, but was also referred to as Frogtown. It was a community made up of residential homes, churches, a school, a few businesses, but mostly the lives and livelihoods of many of the black people in Dothan. It was a close-knit community comprised of families, poverty, as well as prosperity. There were many things that could be done without leaving the neighborhood. You could go to church, shop at a store, grow your own food, go to school, or go out on the weekend and have a good time at the White Horse. Some of the residents lived in nice homes, while others lived in houses that were substandard with no electricity, no inside plumbing. Some had outdoor toilets, outhouses. Many of them would be described as run-down shacks. Most of them were located on dusty dirt roads. Little known to the residents of Southside, a major change was about to take place, which they would have little or no input into what was about to transpire. It was the beginning of what is known as urban renewal. From 1949 to 1974, the U.S. government underwrote the program known as urban renewal, the planned redevelopment and improvement of deteriorated urban areas, often involving demolishing old structures and constructing new ones. It also included the process of seizing and demolishing large swaths of private and public property for the purpose of modernizing and improving aging infrastructure. This program was implemented through a Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD grant and loan program. Much of the time, these projects split or destroyed black communities throughout the U.S. The South Side was no exception. All of its residents were forced to relocate. They didn't have a choice. Here's a former resident describing what it was like living on the South Side.
It was like a big family community. Actually, because I think we were so close. The houses were not, you couldn't reach out and touch, but they were very close, and we only had maybe 3 or 4 streets in our neighborhood. So you would either live on one of those 4 streets. We lived 2 places, I remember. I was born at 605 West Franklin Street. That house was a big house because it was 5 siblings. My dad, when he was there, my grandmother, and my mom lived there. And we didn't venture out much past the area. So that's one reason we got along. And if my parents didn't have something, there was nothing thought of go to Geraldine's house and get a cup of grits, and you take these sausages to her, or take this cheese to her. It was like more or less, I guess, on the barter system, not really on the barter system, but I guess it was food-wise. I remember in the summer when it was harvest time for peas or butter beans, we had a garden also that we had to plant, pull the weeds, harvest. We even had sugar cane. It wasn't much bought, especially like vegetables, kind of self-sustaining ourselves like that. In school, we attended Alice Street School. Alice Street School had 2 rooms, and it was separated by a pool partition. All the first graders that lived in that area went to the first grade there. Mrs. Robbie B. West was our teacher. She taught all the first graders. On the other side of the partition were the 2nd and 3rd graders. The 2nd graders sat in the first 2, I guess, and the 3rd graders sat in the last 2. On the 4th grade, 5th and 6th, we had to walk. I'm gonna say, I was a little kid then. I'm gonna say it was about maybe 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles from where we lived on 605 West Franklin Street to Montana Street School. We all walked together. That was another way of becoming very close with our neighbors and friends, and talked and sometimes we sang, had games or whatever. That made the journey a little better. I attended the Bethel Baptist Church, one of the 3 churches in the neighborhood. If you were Baptist, everybody that was Baptist attended New Bethel Baptist Church. I remember, like on special holidays like Easter, My grandmother had made my sisters and I dresses for Easter. I had this nice, I remember vividly, it was an orange dress. She had gone down to a store downtown called Bloomberg's. I remember going to Bloomberg's, and we didn't go that often, but I liked going to Bloomberg's because it had an escalator. And she would get like these big can slips. She made our dresses out of material called organdy. It was a light fabric, real pretty. And she put collars on it, lace after lace after lace. She did all the sewing. My grandmother was named Letha Sistrunk. And she could not read or write. As a matter of fact, later on we found out, we really never found a birth certificate, a legal birth certificate, but we did find out by the way, a census report, the census report that we found that she was born in 1900. But like I said, she could not read, she could not write, but she could count her money. We had an ice box at our house, and sometimes we would get ice from the iceman. Then sometimes we would have to take that red wagon that we had and go across town and pick up the ice. The ice made it back home and it got in the ice box, and that's how we had ice. My mom did housework. I will never forget. She was a housekeeper for one of the lieutenant governor of the state of Alabama. His name was Guy Hardwick. And my grandmother did housework. Both of them did housework. To sum it all up, living on Southside was a great experience. Like I said, we were close because there was a need to be close.
The south side of Dothan was a community that relied on each other, filled with people who worked together to make the most of their neighborhood, regardless of the circumstances that they faced. Many of the residents moved to the east side into a newer subdivision known as Lakeview, and some are still living there. Whether you refer to it as Southside or Frogtown, it produced many fine, successful individuals, just like the one that you just saw. Today, the South Side is made up of homes mostly built in the 1960s and 70s. Many of them are now occupied by African Americans. Urban renewal may have taken away their homes, but it couldn't take away their spirit.